Hello, welcome back to another pen talk. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for coming along the journey. It's been fun for me and hopefully fun for you. This video is going to focus on these two pens. It's going to take a few twists and turns along the way, but I just received this exquisite transparent blue 618, and about a week ago I got this amazing all metal, at least cap and barrel, 601. So these are both Wing Sung pens. I have a lot of these in different finishes, different colors, but I think these represent two levels, and I think it's good to revisit pens occasionally and see how they've evolved, improved, and changed since their initial release. We'll show how these two were shipped. They came, I'd say, within the normal time frame. One from eBay, one from Etsy, just because that's where I saw them first, and the price was fine. And they were extremely well wrapped, which Bobby Pen is known for doing. So let's explore these a little bit more closely. You may ask, didn't I recently receive a long-awaited shipment of Pen BBS pens? And the answer is yes. But I felt these pens were more important to put together a video on. There's nothing new except maybe some finishes and some different formats in my Pen BBS pens, but don't fret. There'll be a video on those in a little bit. So let's start with the 601. When I saw this come out on Bobby's Etsy store, and we'll put a link in the description to his store, I was just impressed with the simplistic form of this pen. You know, the brush stainless steel, the gold-plated trim. It's just very nicely engraved. No questioning what it is. And yes, that arrow clip might confuse a few people, but it's been on these types of pens for a long time. It's a pull-off cap, and we'll see the one thing that this shares in common with the 618 is that hooded nib, which I find to be a pleasant writing experience. In general, the 618 nib is a little bit wider than the 601 nib. The other thing you'll notice is this is a pump filler. You know, a nice metal activator for that filling system. So it's missing an ink window, but I can live without an ink window. For the simplistic way that this pen looks, the fit and finish, the feel in the hand, it's extremely ergonomic to write with. That weight of the metal, I think, just puts it in that real sweet spot from my perspective. It posts very deeply, very securely. You do feel the weight of that cap, and we'll give you the weights of all these parts so you can put it in perspective. Just a very nice pen. I need to figure out what ink I want to put in it and show you how it writes. So this 618 to me is equally impressive from a visual perspective. You know, more modernistic style on that arrow clip, kind of reminiscent of the ellipse that I reviewed a while ago. And a similar type of clean engraving on the cap band. And this is a piston converter instead of that draw filler or vacuumatic style in the 601. And it has a locking cap, which sometimes I forget. So you got to pull it up, and then you can turn it to activate the piston. You can see it moving there. They did a nice job as to most of these components are light colored. I think the only thing that's dark is that actual piston itself. Our LED should be able to really show that. And then you snap the cap back in place and you're ready to go. This is an unscrew cap, unlike the 601, which is a pull-off. And we'll see again, nice hooded nib. They're all in the fine variety, fine to extra fine. I think this pen would have also looked great in silver or rhodium trim, but the gold certainly works well. And just like the 601, it feels great ergonomically in the hand. It's much lighter, and we'll give you those weights. And the cap posts very securely, very deeply. And in this model, that cap really doesn't change the balance during the writing experience. So it works great posted, and this is a pen I would probably regularly post. And that section is just, again, it's a classic design. And those of you that have heard me say classic a lot or iconic a lot, yes, I certainly do feel that there's a lot of value and a lot of very good writing experiences in pens that have this classic design. So I think the pens that I feel aesthetically are close to the 601 are these two Parker 45s. Again, that brushed aluminum cap and barrel. This one, it has a little gold ring there between the cap and barrel. Is made in UK, and this is the US version. And there's a minor slight variances in the clip. Other than that, it's pretty much the same type of design, but I have to admit that from an aesthetics viewpoint and from a size viewpoint, that 601 is really right there in that sweet spot. The 45s are a little bit smaller. Let's look at them posted. These all post very deeply, very securely, and can, in my hand, feel good posted as well as unposted. Where they really differentiate is the section and the nib. We call these semi-hooded or partially hooded, or a few different descriptions on it. This is a nice broad nib here. And I don't know whether the light is picking it up, but the sections in both of those 45s are a little bit distorted, which I found interesting. Not certain exactly what causes that, but that's part of the experience with vintage, that you're going to get some deviations and things may not survive the test of time well. And this section here is just that classic section, which is more common to the one that was on the 51, which preceded the 45, even though it's a higher number. And from a writing experiences, I've used a number of 45s, but they never really caught on to me from an everyday carry, where I have a number of 601s and 618s, which I use on a regular basis, and they're very reliable and very good everyday carries. So these designs also include like a clutch ring inside the cap. And on the 51 design and this design in the 601, there's this clutch ring. As you can see, there's a little indent in it that catches and securely holds the cap in place. And then there's generally a plastic liner inside which seals against the section. And that's similar in this design on the 45. But on the 45, the cap comes down here. The barrel, the barrel is exposed more than it is on the 601 or 51 design. Here we have some pens to compare to the 618. And here is that pen in rhodium trim. So you get to see how that plays off against that translucent blue. And they look pretty much the same. So here's a pen BBS 500. And the 500 is in a color called Ocean. We'll list those models here. And this is a darker, a little bit of purple in it, translucent, really nice, unique color. Here we have a 308 in gold trim, which is not very common. And this is the Infinite series, which I think is very similar, just a slightly darker, less transparent resin than the 618s. And just for fun, I threw in the 491 Winter's Night, which has some sparkle in it, and is also in that very transparent blue color, and it is full of ink, and it is a very nice writer. And I did eyedropper this, which is, to me, the way to go with that model. So hopefully you've enjoyed this kind of look at some blue pens that I have, and I think they look pretty good. So Wingsung uses the same packaging for the 618 and the 601, which is this reminiscent of the Lamy box. And inside is an insert that clips the pen in place, so it's a very secure, if kind of flimsy packaging. Not really the gift packaging that some people might like. And the pens come with this little tube of silicone grease, which is, I think, an excellent addition, an excellent add-on by Wingsung. And they also come with some fairly extensive instructions that talk about cleaning and filling, and they're all visual, so you can easily understand them, and they help you improve your experience with the pens. And on the 618, Bobby threw in a spare nib, which looks interesting. It appears to be on the fine side, but has a decent amount of tipping material on it, so that's always nice to get a little surprise with your pen. We've inked up the 618, and we're ready to show you how it writes. I picked this ink to try. Comes in a small bottle. About a year and a half ago, I ordered a bunch of Robert Oster ink, and I got a bunch of ink. So this ink I haven't really used before, and it's a little bit light, but let's see how this extra fine nib performs. And it is extra fine. The extra nib is more on the fine side, so it's easy to fill. As I mentioned, you just pull up this blind cap, and hopefully the camera picks it up. There's a little notch there, and that notch coincides with one of those extensions which fits into that slot. So you can hear it snap in place, unsnap, snap. So if you turn it where it's not off, where they're not lined up, then you can't push the cap in and lock it in place. So that's one of the key things. And it was easy to fill. I did my 3 fills to saturate everything and flush everything, because this is not a pen I'm going to just put a syringe on and flush. So let's see how the nib writes. So when I write, over here is where I have the microphone to pick up the nib on paper. So like all my 618s, this is a smooth nib. You do get feedback, and this is that Fabriano paper, which doesn't have as much coating as like a Clairefontaine or a Tomoe River paper, but I like it because it works well with ink in my perspective. And this is an extra fine nib, so you're going to feel it on the paper, but it's not an unpleasant feeling. And much to my surprise, pleasant surprise, this is working well with this kind of pale ink. And it is a kind of nice blue color. So that's where you always take a chance with an extra fine nib like this. And it's not super wet, and this ink dries fairly quickly on this paper. So it's going to be okay. It's usable, which is very nice. So we're going to rate this pen, and I'm going to give it a 9.1. 1 check for design, build, look, everything else. And as much as I'm not an extra fine nib person, I'm going to give it 1 check for the nib, because it does work very well. This could easily be an everyday writer which my other 618s that are inked up, and they've been inked up for years. When I empty them out, I refill them. I haven't cleaned them, I haven't done anything, and you uncap them and they write first time every time. So that's definitely a trait of a very well-made pen, a very good pen, and a pen that works great as an everyday carry. So let's take a look at the 601. So for this pen, this is the ink I chose. I wanted a permanent blue-black, and this suits the bill, and I've always been very, very pleased with every pen I've used this ink in. If we look at the color card, we'll see it's definitely on the blue-black side. I just find this, like I say, consistently nice ink. So this pen is very easy to fill. You unscrew the blind cap, you put the nib, immerse the nib in ink, and you only have to immerse it up to there. So if you have a low level of ink, this will allow you to fill in that type of a bottle. And in the first pump you hear a little bit of air come out, second pump, third pump, and by the fourth pump you don't hear any air coming out because it has filled the pen. I'll reference my video in which I showed the filling on a transparent pen with this type of pump filler. It works extremely well, and you get a very good fill. A lot of ink in there. With that Fine Nib, it'll write for a long time. So I think you may have heard that this nib is smoother than the 618. It also lays down a thicker line, which is what you would expect. And this ink really works extremely well in this pen. As soon as I touched nib to paper when I filled the pen for the first time, I just felt great. I mean, it feels good on the paper. It's effortless to write with. Requires no pressure. I mean, kudos to Wingsung. They did an excellent job with this design. And they continue to do subtle improvements. This metal finish just feels good in the hand. It looks great. Very durable. Definitely a knock-around everyday carry pen. So out of this, I'm 2 for 2 for pens, but this certainly is one that would have many more uses than the 618, and this type of ink really works well on almost any type of paper, and it does have some permanency to it, so that gives it another feather in its cap. So let's rate this pen, and I'm going to give it a 9.6. 1 check for design, build, and execution, and we're actually going to give it 2 checks. And we're going to give it 2 checks for the nib and the writing experience. So it's an excellent pen. And some people, for some reason, don't like hooded nibs. I don't understand that. To me, the writing experience is exquisite. It works well. You know, this design is, what, 70 plus years old. And it still looks modern, works well. What else is to say? So we've come to the end of the video now. And hopefully you've enjoyed this look at 2 pens and some comparisons. And I deliberately, when I looked at the 618 in blue, I deliberately only picked Chinese blue pens. I didn't bring out my Chartreuse 3776, which probably could have been put into the mix, but I used that when I reviewed the first 308 in that Infinity, so you can look at that review if you wanted to see that comparison. So we've reached the end of this video, so thank you very much for watching. Hopefully I've provided some entertainment, some knowledge, maybe have you thinking differently about some other pens, or think thinking more about some pens. It is a pen channel, so that's my goal. And I hope you all are safe and healthy. It's trying times, and here in the United States we seem to have some challenges on trying to address our current situation, but I think we all have hope and faith that we will eventually figure it out. So may you have many great writing experiences. Explore your pen world. Just get a pen, get some ink, get some paper, and start putting ink on paper. You never know what might happen. So this is the end for now. And we're going to say bye until the next video. This works very, very well. I'm very pleased.